Welcome back to the Judges series on Barefoot Bible. Our vlog today is Jerusalem before the Jews, covering Judges 1, verses 6 through 10. What was this internationally known city before it was called Jerusalem? Who were the original inhabitants of the city? And who conquered it? And last week we read about Adonai Bezek in verse 5. And so let's pick up with verses 6 and 7 and continue learning a little bit more about this king they conquered. Verse 6. Then Adonai Bezek fled, and they pursued him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. We'll explain that in a moment. Verse 7, and Adonai Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off, used to gather scraps under my table. As I have done, so God has repaid me. And then they brought him to Jerusalem, and there he died. And you hear from the fallen king himself why they would cut off his thumbs and big toes. It was known what he had done. He was not just a monarch, he was a formidable king, a Canaanite king, and he demonstrated his strength through brutal civil war, defeating and conquering these 70 rival kings, the ones he cut their thumbs off as well. And his ruthless victory led these kings not only being defeated, but tortured, maimed, enslaved, highlighting his unrelenting power and authority. And notably, the king's reaction to Israel applying the same punishment he had used was, quote, as I have done, so God has repaid me. Verse 8 continues, now the children of Judah fought against Jerusalem and took it. They struck it with the edge of the sword and set the city on fire. And Jerusalem, of course, a vital historical hub, strategically located on top of Mount Zion, Mount Moriah, and it's protected by steep valleys that serve as natural defenses. In ancient times, it was known as Jebusi, Joshua chapter 18, or Jebus, Judges chapter 19. And it was the stronghold of the Jebusites. And later on here in chapter 1, we'll get to a verse explaining that. But after the conquest and I mentioned that it was at a strategic location that had a lot of self-defense by nature because it was on Mount Zion and Mount Moriah. And there's still more later named the Mount of Olives, which is in the New Testament mentioned there. But it was up on this plateau. It was rather steep to get up the hill to it, and that provided a great defense. And then after the conquest of Canaan, Jerusalem eventually became the vital crossroads. It was situated at an intersection of territories. And I circled the tribe of Benjamin to the north and the tribe of Judah to the south. The blue arrows pointing at Jerusalem, since it's a little bit hard to see. During the period of the Judges, both of these tribes played essential roles, highlighting Jerusalem's significance as a center of influence and unity among the tribes. Although Jerusalem eventually became the capital of Israel during the early period of Judges, they actually named it the city of a stranger. And you'll find that in Judges 19 also. But Judges 121 explains Jerusalem was only subdued. It wasn't fully occupied at the time. They didn't have full control over it. In fact, it's going to be some time before King David fully conquers the area. So let's move on to verse 9. And afterward, the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites who dwelt in the mountains, in the south and in the lowland. Verse 10, then Judah went against the Canaanites who dwelt in Hebron. The scripture explains, now the name of Hebron was formerly Kirjath Arba. And they killed, now he's referring to this last area, Hebron, and they killed Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. Some interesting historical background here that can be verified. Hebron was originally known as Kirjath Arba, which means the city of Arba. And we'll see that if you look back to Joshua, chapters 14, 15, and 20 mention that. It holds a prominent place in history. Arba was celebrated as the father of the Anakim. And the Anakims were a legendary race of giants. Read about them, Joshua 15:13, and again in 21:11. But verse 10 here names three individuals, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. These are descendants of Arba, and they were identified as the children of Anak. Again, the Anakim, or the giants. And now next week, we'll continue our Judges series with From Spy to Giant Killer. And we'll cover verses 11 through 15 about an exciting character who has come a long way to be written about here in Judges chapter 1. So thank you for tuning in today to our Judges series, and I hope you'll tune back in next Thursday or anytime after that, the following week, for From Spy to Giant Killer.